Hello.
Hello. Hello, I am Antoinette Gatewood and Mr. Handz Harrison. Here we are on UR&T Broadcasting. I want to thank all of our supporters for joining us this evening. And our theme for today is hopefulness and empowerment. We have a special guest, Miss Alicia Dianne, a published graphic novelist and illustrator. She has been shaking up the conversation of colonization and how a broken history has disrupted our sense of identity as Blacks worldwide in her new series, Jaydi's Story, the first book of which was successfully funded on Kickstarter last year. She wants to create a space where even though trauma, the strength of human spirit, and belief in a high power can overcome even the most trying of odds and leave us all with a sense of hopefulness. Without further delay, let us bring on Miss Alicia Dianne.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm
Yes, yes,
so glad to be here. Thank you all for having me.
yes. And I also want the audience to know that me and Alicia, we have a great friendship through
Yes,
another book ministry, Girlfriends Guide to God.
yes,
And
we
so I
do.
really got to know her really well through that. So I am so blessed to be able to interview her tonight. So welcome.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, we were reading your bio, and you had a lot going on in that bio.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the key takeaways you want from this book series?
Well, some of the key takeaways, I have a couple of recurring themes. I definitely want people to have an understanding that the extreme poverty that we see throughout the world is not on an accident. It didn't happen by accident. Particularly in my book, I talk about the continent of Africa, East Africa in particular, but definitely extreme poverty is not accidental. Some of the other takeaways that I want people to understand is the idea that we're all individuals and each individual matters. I want people to have a sense of empathy and understanding for diverse cultures and a wide variety of different people groups and kind of have a sense of oneness, that we're all the same in that way. A couple of other things that I want people to get through the series is the idea of forgiveness and a sense of healing.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I mean, with the amount of information, especially as I dig into history and how that impacts our present lives, I definitely don't want people coming out feeling hopeless or coming out feeling like all is lost. I want exactly completely the opposite. I want a sense of togetherness, a sense of oneness, and a sense of better understanding for each other. And
Awesome.
those are some of the key takeaways.
That's
Okay.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did your life influence your art?
Oh wow. My life influenced my art drastically. I had been making art. I think my mother recalls the first time I made a painting was on our couch when I was probably 2 or 3 years old. So
Yeah.
I've been making art for as long as I can remember, but it wasn't until a few years ago that I really started to want to make art that actually impacts people and makes a difference in people's lives. And I think
Mhm.
it was a lot to do with the fact that I had gone through a lot of struggles in my own life. And I'd gone from a place of really just kind of just trying to make what I consider would be good art, realistic art, or even just funny art into a place of I want to make art that has a message. I feel like I had gone through enough in my personal life that I wanted to tell stories that had a strong message.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What's your favorite technique? Watercolors, digital. What's or are you all over with it? All over the place with it?
Actually, kind of am all over the place, but I have to say that my favorite thing to use is watercolor. It's definitely not the easiest medium to use. It's arguably the most difficult medium to use because it's so fussy. But I love working with it. It really brings me a sense of calmness, which is one of the reasons why I started painting in the first place. Was just it gave me so much peace and so much zen. But I chose watercolors in particularly for this comic book, which is really rare for comics to be made with watercolor, because I really enjoy the process and it really makes me feel at peace. And I wanted that to kind of come through,
The
even
art
though
is
it
really
might take
good.
a little longer.
The art is really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I browsed through and it really looks good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Uh, do you have a display or some of the art that we can see, or at the end we would love for you to send a link. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely share images like throughout. I have a lot of images on my website. I've done a couple of different gallery shows with some of the collections that have led up to this book. I did a lot of exploring like, creatively before I actually began writing the story. So it's kind of was an interesting process for me to kind of explore different types of art mediums and show those works in different galleries and then finally have this book series that's here today.
okay, awesome. Okay, so how did your personal experiences relate to the characters in Jaydi's story?
Oh wow, that's a really great question also because there's really some difficult situations that happen in the story. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, so to speak. There's a lot of drama and trying things that happen. I mean, right off the bat, JD loses both her parents and has to figure life out after that. So it's not for little kids. It's definitely for teenage age group and up. But a lot of the traumas that go on in the story are basically all of the traumas that go on the story are really from my own experiences, and I'm just translating that into a narrative story. There's I just wanted to be able to tell a story of almost like telling a story of myself, but kind of related into this whole other world and this whole other vision, and do it through the eyes of this young girl in Eastern Africa.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. So I'm quite sure everybody's going to be excited that actually get your actual book. So
Yeah.
why did you choose a medium of watercolors for that particular book?
Yeah, I chose the medium of watercolor because I really love the process. I actually had illustrated the entire book and painted it digitally. And I realized that I really didn't like that process. I didn't, it was like a disconnection for me. It was just something that it didn't feel right. It didn't have the energy that I wanted it to. And I just was like, let me use the medium that I really enjoy using. So when I used watercolor, and I really felt like this is coming to life now. It really felt like it was starting to really show the energy that I wanted to, even though it was a longer process and more complicated. It just felt like it was having the energy that I wanted it to have.
Awesome. Awesome. So what art collections led up to the graphic novel?
I did a ton of exploring creatively before I started writing. I was actually really insecure about the writing process. I wasn't even sure if I would write the story myself when I first began exploring this whole idea of who this character is, who is Jaydi, where does she live, and I started just listening to different types of African music, and I would just freestyle paint, and I would use all different types of mediums. I'd use acrylics and I'd use pastels, and I would just try to get a sense and a feel of the culture. Um, and that's a good, that could, we could talk about that also, just how I think I let the art that I was doing, the exploring in art, I let that kind of represent the exploring of history that I was doing at the same time, because I was just first learning about African history at the same time that I was kind of exploring this world of JD.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes.
Um, so what are you doing now to give back?
To give back, I really believe in giving back. It's really important to me. So I knew that there was some way that I could give back, but I wasn't sure exactly how at first. So I knew that I needed to do a little bit of research, and based on that, I really realized that the greatest thing that I can contribute. Sorry.
Family.
The greatest way that I could really contribute would be to support education. And I think that we can talk about that too, just um, exploring how I started learning about colonization and that had, and really the only way that I feel like to begin to come out of that, even though of course we've been trying to come out of that for some time now. Um, I really think we can really begin to see a difference when we start seeing more education happening. So right now, I'm currently sponsoring 5 girls in Kenya. They're all between the ages of 5 and 18, so there's kind of a broad range. And also give sponsorships to girls. And I think they're a great organization. I've done some research into a couple of different organizations. Definitely think that charity work is really at the heart of what I'm trying to do.
So the
Uh,
viewers that want, I'm sorry, the viewers that want to support your movement, how can
Mhm.
they reach out to you?
Oh yeah, well definitely they can go to my website, aliciadianne.com, and see my work. They can read my bio. I'm on a couple of different platforms. I have a YouTube channel. They can definitely come and read the books. I think that that's probably the greatest way that you can begin to get on board is to sort of read these stories and see what they're about. And right now I'm working on the second book. This is going to be a series of 9 different books. So it all is cohesive. We'll be telling
Okay.
the story.
Hmm.
awesome. And what do you want your key audience, the teens, to take away from the series?
I really want teenagers to come away with this with a sense of hopefulness and a sense of really just excitement. The stories are so gosh, there's so much happening. There's so much going on. I use Swahili words and I incorporate folklore in there, and I tell all these different dynamics between friendships and family life. And I really want people to really see the story and be like, wow, I can make stories like this. I want to tell stories like this. I think that having more stories in the world is so important, especially um, for minority culture, because really, if we look at the comics world and animation world, uh, black stories, black and brown stories, minority stories are such a small percentage of that. And I really hope that we can expand that and that more young people can be inspired to join these fields and to start telling stories of their own and to start expanding the voices that we have available. Because I think that there's so many opportunities for that, and I just feel like there's just so much youth that don't see themselves represented. So they never really even think of art as a possible career path when it is.
Yeah.
So I really want people to be inspired. I want people to be excited about these books and to get inspired to tell their own stories as well.
Wow.
Awesome. So talk about the Afrocentric culture and inspiring women. Can you expand
Oh,
on that?
sure, absolutely. Let me see. Where do I where do I start? Uh, I think one of the biggest things for me is kind of what I was talking about just now with when I moved to California and I came out here to join the animation world, and I really saw firsthand that there were so few people like me in the world, in this little world of animation and cartooning. And I found a couple of different organizations that were doing things, to contribute to having more women involved and things like that. But I still saw so few black women in this field, and it really made me realize that you know we need more people in this industry, and we need more people telling their stories and creating art. And it just made me even more interested in learning about what I was already beginning to learn about, which is African culture. And when I
Right.
started studying African culture a few years ago, it was just like everything was just new to me. Everything I was just learning for the first time, and it was just so captivating to me.
Hmm. Awesome. Is there anything else you would like to add to the story?
Sure. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I'm not even sure where to begin. I mean, where should I really begin? I mean, some of the things that I really want people to understand is the fact that our history isn't being taught to us in schools.
Right.
Right.
And I felt kind of robbed in a way that I really didn't know what colonization was until I was almost 30 years old.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't believe that. I just couldn't believe that I didn't know what that was. And I still think that a lot of a lot of American people, especially I think across the board, a lot of American people don't really know what colonization is. And it's basically a takeover. It's a complete takeover.
Mhm.
People's resources are taken from them, their freedoms are taken from them. They're really stripped down to nothing. They don't have any say of what happens to their culture. Their culture is basically taken away from them,
Mhm.
including language. I mean, across the world, we see people speaking English, French, and Spanish, far beyond the barriers of England,
Yeah.
Spain, and France. And that's all because of colonization. And it's had such a negative impact on countries. And God, it's had a horrible impact on Africa. And I just want us to have an understanding of what happened
Mhm.
and have an understanding of what the Berlin Conference is. I wish I would expand on that too even more, but basically it's just crazy, crazy colonization gone wild, basically. Um, but I want people to have an understanding of what that is. I think it's important for us to know what our history is because it's hard to build back and to come back from this sort of devastation without even knowing what that is.
Yes.
Yeah, without even knowing what that is. So I think that's really important. So I wanted to incorporate that into the story and incorporate the characters learning about it and having that conflict of okay, there's missionaries here and not sure how to feel about that. A lot of it was my own conflicting emotions of how would I feel, as an African person just being in my own home and having outsiders that look completely different than me coming in and telling me that they're going to make my life better,
Right.
Right.
especially with
Right.
the history of their devastating lives. And that was some of the conflict that I was exploring on my own, and I wanted to incorporate that into the story. And so I did through different characters. And I didn't want it to feel like there's like any sort of sense of hopelessness. I just want it to be more of like understanding. From
Right.
understanding, I feel like we can come to many different places. We can begin the process really of healing and coming out of that.
What's coming
What
up
about?
next with you? I'm sorry. What's next? What do we expect next from you?
Oh, you can expect the second book. Right now, I'm working on the second book. So the first book, In the Beginning, is currently out and it's on my website.
Hmm.
And now I'm making the second one. So that one will be out in a few months as well.
You want to give us a title, or you going to hold on to it?
The second one for now. It's still sort of a working title.
Okay. We look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you for donating a free copy of your book to
Oh
both of
yes,
us.
thank
Oh
you.
yeah,
I
Yes,
appreciate
I'll
it.
make.
yeah. I wanted you guys to have a reference of what to look at and what
Yeah.
the story would be about. So yeah, I'm glad to share that.
We'll definitely tag all your information when posting this, so that people can get at you in regard to purchasing and supporting you.
Yeah, that's the excellent. Thank you guys.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think I can share my screen though.
Mhm. Well, we'll definitely make sure your links are attached. And maybe if you repeat your link for the ones that are listening.
Sure. Well, you can, the website is aliciadianne.com. And Diane has two N's. And
Mhm.
all of my social media platforms are at Alicia Dianne Art.
Okay.
And when you get a chance, I would love for you to tell your story about your grandfather and how he inspired you also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was a huge inspiration for me. He's, he's one of the few really strong role models that I had growing up. And he's actually Reverend. We
Okay.
ended up, yeah, he was a reverend, and we moved in with my grandparents when I was 5 in Brooklyn. So he was just a really good soul, and he was incredibly interested in African history, African culture, and he actually taught African studies at Fordham University as well. So he had a huge library of African books, and I remember him sitting me down when I was little and making me watch Roots, and I'm like, well, I guess this is okay. Why am I getting all of this information? But I didn't realize it when I was younger how much of an impact it would have on me later on. Um, it really was setting that seed and setting that foundation for having that real curiosity for like this place that we come from that's so far away, that's across the Atlantic Ocean, that you know I've never seen, I've never been to Africa myself, but it just gave me this passion to want to know more about it. And so
Yeah.
I felt inspired. We have a rich culture and a rich history that unfortunately was taken from us, and I just wanted to learn more about what that is. And he really, I think, started that in me without me even knowing, without me even knowing. I think he really embedded that in me.
Wow.
Yes,
Good
beautiful.
story.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he did pass away when I was 19 years old. He had lung cancer, but he was just really the rock of our family, and I
Mm.
still miss him. I still miss him so much.
Yes, I can imagine.
So, this has been a pleasure. You've shared a lot of information, a lot of yourself. We
Yeah.
appreciate it, and we look forward to you coming back with your new release, whatever that is. Keep us posted.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. One other question. What was your experience? I think you was at the Essence Festival.
Oh yes,
Mm-hmm.
I had the best time of all time at the Essence Festival. It was my first time going there. I went there this year as an exhibitor. It was 4th of July weekend in New Orleans, so it was incredibly humid, but it was so beautiful. It was just it was just a celebration of blackness. It's like the only way that I can really describe it. Just a celebration of our culture. And there was just music everywhere. There was just people everywhere. And there was just so much positive energy. Everyone was just there to just share love. It felt like everyone was there to just, to listen and to just be positive. And had so many people come by our booth and just ask questions. A lot of people got the book. A lot of people bought art. and they were just asking questions, and it was just so great. It was a wonderful experience. I would definitely go again, and I would recommend anybody to go there. There's so many, just so much going on.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so much going on. It was wonderful.
Beautiful, beautiful. Do you have a hard copy of your book with you?
I do have a physical copy of my book. It's like right behind me, I think. uh, but this is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the book here.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a great. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's a great story.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very rich.
Yeah,
Everything is beautiful. I
yeah.
also noticed that you put yourself, your African American slash African Caribbean.
hmm hmm Yeah.
What?
Yeah, like I said, when I was 5, we moved in with my grandparents, and my grandmother is from Barbados, native born Barbados, and she came to the States when she was 13 years old, and she also had a big influence on me as well, in very different ways than my grandfather did. But I think as soon as we moved in with them, I was definitely just completely exposed to our Asian culture, the food, the flying fish, the music. She had like the old record player, and she would just play calypso on there all the time. And growing up in Brooklyn in general, I mean, even if I didn't already have like the bloodline, I
Yeah,
think a lot of it is like all like I almost didn't feel American at all when I was growing up because all of my friends were from the Caribbean.
yeah,
My grandmother would go back to Barbados every year, and I went with her several times. And it was just such a great thing for me to experience that part of my culture. And I just really just grew up so connected to the Caribbean side of my family.
yeah. That's beautiful.
One more question. For a young artist, writer that would
Mhm.
want to follow in your footsteps or move in the direction that you're moving in, what would you
Yeah.
suggest? How would you suggest they go about it?
Oh man, I would. The first thing, the first thing I would say is draw and draw every single day. I know you probably have heard that already, but I really think that that's the foundation of so much, especially as an artist, especially if you're going to be like telling stories with images, whether that's in animation or cartooning or stories, storybooks. The foundation of drawing is incredibly important, and I feel like that's kind of the beauty in it too. But once you really have that down, you can kind of do anything with it. It's almost like it feels like a superpower because it's like, all right, I can. You don't even have to think about it anymore. You just make things.
Right.
Well, of
Right.
course you have to think about it, but it becomes a part of you. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a long time to get to that place. It takes so much practice. There's so much studying of anatomy and color theory and the way different paint mediums work. But once you understand it, it's kind of like okay, you can just go off with it and take it. So you really got to have that first foundation of drawing. And I would say equally as important is really start to understand who you are as a person and what you want to say to the world. It's so important not to make art just to make art. You have to have something to say. So find out what it is that inspires you. Find out what things, even what makes you mad, what makes you angry. Because once you realize that, you can start to think, well, what can I do to change that? What can I do to make things better for this situation? And you can begin to start to create themes and create stories that have some sort of meaning and end goal to what you're doing. So I think it's really important to understand who you are and what you really care about. Yeah.
With your artwork, you have variety of sizes of portraits, and what other merchandise are you marketing outside of the books?
Outside of the funny thing is, I did so much exploring, I think, in the art world. Um, when I came out of art school, I would just go into galleries and just ask people how they did stuff, and just I would just ask them, "Well, where do you get this made?" or "How do you do that?" And I just was just soaking up information, and I was just exploring in a lot of different ways. So I mean, I have small little paintings to like big acrylic paintings and oil paintings, and I've done lots of different things. So I have a lot of different variety on there. I think a lot of the paintings that you see on my website will be a combination of digital paintings and watercolor paintings. And but I've done so much exploring, and as fine art is concerned, and I've definitely have picked up a lot of different types of styles and things like that.
Great. Right.
Awesome. Okay. So, Alicia, would you like to repeat your website again? And this time spell it, because you know how some people spell Alicia different
Oh
ways.
yeah. Well, sure, no problem. Well, it's spelled Alicia, Alicia. I think it's the same way that Alicia Keys spells hers. So I think it's easy for people to remember that way. So
Yeah.
Alicia is Alicia, and the Diane is Dianne. Again, it's Dianne. And if you just go to aliciadianne.com, you can find all my information and my books and all my art. And if you look at Alicia Dianne art on whether that's on Instagram or on YouTube, you'll be able to see some of my content there.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for spending time with us tonight. And
Yeah,
yeah, I believe you're going to have a lot of people looking at your work, enlarge your territory. That's what I'm claiming, right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope people check out the story. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely a labor of love.
Yes. We
And I'm looking
definitely
forward
do.
to it. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm signing
God
off.
bless.
Thank you for joining UR&T
Yeah.
Broadcasting with Miss Alicia Dianne, Miss Antoinette Gatewood, and I'm Handz Harrison. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again. Good night.
God bless.
Good
Good
night.
night. Bye.